What's up, folks? This is Steel. Welcome to History in Combat. What you see here is the Soviet I-185 Tier 3 fighter. Clanmate Matic-83 and myself had just started a domination battle in Mozdok.
Oh, I had changed belts. Ground tuggers are nice to make things explode, but they're not that great to set them on fire.
But because this is the History in Combat series, I wanted to tell you about how the fate of the Soviet I-185 and that of one single remarkable pilot were tragically linked. To do so, we have to rewind the clock about 12 years before the I-185 was actually even developed, and introduce you to a pilot named Vasily Andreyovich Stepanchenok.
I do have to say I like the minimalist approach to the cockpit, though.
In doing research for the 185, I stumbled across Vasily and I learned that he was an amazing individual. The first records of Vasily were from 1930, and he was already 29 years old, which means he was an interwar pilot, too young for World War I and too old generally for combat in World War II.
Fire!
But I could tell pretty quickly that Vasily was a remarkable pilot, as he was the commander of Russia's first air acrobatic team.
I eventually got to doing some digging, and with the rounds for the 50s, the 123s, that is actually fairly possible.
But his accomplishments don't end there. He was the first person to loop a glider in 1932.
Well, I don't like it.
In 1933, he tested the I-116 prototype, I think it was the I-116 M22, with other Soviet pilots. As you probably already know, the I-116 was a very maneuverable airplane. It's very maneuverable in War Thunder. But during its prototype phase, through wind tunnel testing, it was determined to be kind of unstable, so they had pilots like Vasily take it up and intentionally put it into flat spins. In 1935, Vasily did something that was completely amazing. They were developing an aircraft carrier. Yeah, you heard me, an aircraft carrier. And so basically the Soviets were taking TB-1s and TB-3s and hooking I-16s and another plane called an IZ under the wings or under the fuselage on the top of the wings. Well, in developing that system, Vasily became the first pilot to ever attach one airplane in flight to another. So let's give a rundown real quick. Air acrobatic team, putting planes intentionally into flat spins and hooking them to other planes in flight. Vasily was an amazing pilot. After that, Vasily's trail kind of goes cold, but it was mentioned that he was the commander of 2 military pilot schools. And he was also acting as a test pilot right about the time when the I-185 was being developed. The I-185 was designed by the Nikolai Polikarpov Design Bureau in 1940. It was developed to be a high-performance fighter to rival that of the German 109s. But the story of planes like the I-185 that were developed at this time not only revolved around the aerodynamics of it, the performance, but also it had production issues that it had to overcome. In that regard, the I-185 is quite interesting. It went through 4 different engines. The Tumansky M90 radial didn't have enough power. The Shvetsov M81 didn't have enough power. The Shvetsov M82A was needed for the LA5, and it finally got an engine that was good in the Shvetsov M71 radial, giving it a top speed of about 650 kilometers per hour. Pilots were giving it positive reviews. The NII-VVS, or the Soviet Air Force Scientific Research Institute, called it, quote, superior to all contemporary fighters, unquote. And that includes its primary rival at the time, the Bf-109F. Now that's interesting because in War Thunder, the Bf-109F is a 3.0 battle rating in arcade, whereas the I-185 is a 4.0. Now I think the general consensus in War Thunder is that Russian fighters don't burn, they take a massive amount of damage. But I think the I-185 is a little bit of an exception. Now certainly in this video I did indeed put out a fire, but generally I think the I-85 is quite fragile. It doesn't really take that many hits to bring it down. So you certainly can't dogfight in this thing. I mean, it turns relatively okay with the rudder, but not enough that you never take a hit. And even turning with the rudder for an extensive period of time, the plane's flight model is wonky. When you come out of the turn, it wobbles back and forth, almost on the verge of out of control.
P-40 incoming.
So you can see I've been using really cautious boom and zoom tactics. But that leads us to another interesting flaw in the 185 in that it can't really climb that well comparatively to the other planes in its tier. And that's okay here in domination mode where generally everyone's flying low, but in other matches like Ground Strike, you're not going to be the highest plane in the air.
Oh,
Its WEP fades at I think 3,000 meters or something.
that sucks.
So you really can't play this plane aggressively and keep it in the air for very long. But God, oh God, the cannons, that's what makes this thing. It takes just a couple of rounds and a plane goes down. Simple as that, done.
P-51, couple A-20s headed that way.
Yeah, I've seen it. I'm just gonna head away from them for now. I only want to attack those guys with energy.
For battle rating purposes, we all know that War Thunder also factors in firepower, and I think that's where the I-185 has the ultimate edge in the game.
Oh, damn it.
Three Mustangs over here now. That's not good.
Using high explosive fragmentation ammunition and shooting at a deflection, 3 Shvek cannons are murderous. And you can see from the footage, all it takes is a couple of hits. It just tears up wing and tail surfaces. But shooting from the 6 o'clock position is a different story.
And they got a lot of them over there all of a sudden.
Jeez, KF went through me.
Spitfire behind him.
In this match, Matic 83 and I are having trouble fending off this onslaught of enemy fighters. I didn't carry enough energy through that last boom run, so I'm flying back to the spawn, going guns defense, hoping that someone can help me. And there's Matic getting my back. So overall, I think in-game, the 185 is indeed a very capable fighter, as it was in real life.
Down. He was causing me problems.
Yeah, those things can do that. There goes B.
But it certainly needed testing still in 1943, and that's when Vasily Stepanchenok got involved. On April 5th, 1943, the I-185 was essentially ready for production. It needed just a few more tests to work out some of the kinks. But as Vasily strapped into the cockpit that day, he certainly couldn't have known that his fate would be tragically intertwined with this aircraft. While conducting low-altitude flight tests, the carburetor on the I-185 failed. Vasily was forced to attempt a dead-stick landing. He must have had to use all of his skills, but it wasn't enough, and the prototype and Vasily were lost. Shortly thereafter, the government determined that there wasn't enough production facilities available to
Literally.
manufacture the M71 radial. So it was that cold day of April 5th, 1943, that the I-185 and Colonel Vasily Stepanchenok died.
Man, shot out of the sky. Didn't even see him. What's up, everybody? This is Steel from the Steelcast channel. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe down below. Check me out on Twitch at Steelcast27, and check out The Taste on YouTube for map strategies, commentary, and gameplay. Thanks again.